Hello there ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video of Gaming in Linux. Now, if you've been living under a rock for the last few weeks, you might have missed the fact that the Steam summer sale is on right now. So during this video I'm going to be making some game suggestions of what I would recommend during this Steam summer sale, or any sale from now on basically. Whether it be native on Linux or have to run through Steam Play. For the first half of the video, I'll make sure to recommend native Linux games. The latter half of the video will be Windows games, so Steam Play games. I'll make sure to timestamp everything in the description, so make sure to check that out. As mentioned, these are personal suggestions, they're my opinion. I imagine I will miss off games that you very much enjoy, so make sure to suggest those games in the comments, just so people can see what you like as well, because I probably miss games that I would recommend as well. Like I say, make suggestions, they're very much welcome. So starting off on the Linux side, the first game that I'd suggest is A Short Hike. This is actually a hidden gem that I found in a pretty recent Steam sale. It took me around 5 hours to fully complete this. This includes all the achievements and the whole story, so it was a really fun game. And yeah, I just love the pixel graphics, and the controls are so responsive, and just doing everything in the game felt really nice. So next up, Terraria. How could I not suggest Terraria? This game has been going for years now. The devs have done a great job of this, maintaining it. I think they've actually stopped development on it. Maybe not. But yeah, the hours of fun that you can have on this game are just endless. Like, you can do so much with this, and it's fully online, so you can do it all with your friend if you want to, or friends. And yeah, it's one of the most highly rated games on Steam. Over 600,000 reviews, 98% of those are positive. That's huge. Next up, we've got the Metro series, which is a great first-person shooter series based within the metro of Moscow after a nuclear war. I love the books of these games, and just the games as well are fantastic. Some of the better looking games that natively support Linux. Next we have Hellpoint. It's a game that I only covered a couple of weeks back on this channel, but I'd highly recommend it. It's a great game, it's a Dark Souls-esque game, and you can fully play it through the whole game with a friend, which is quite unusual for a Dark Souls-esque game. Usually it allows multiplayer during the boss battles. You can call people in at certain points, but this allows full co-op through the whole game. I played it like that, and whilst it may have made the game like slightly a bit more easier, I kind of don't care about that. I just really enjoy the experience, especially with my friend. Whilst I've not played a lot of Dark Souls games myself, so I don't have a good reference point for how good a Dark Souls-esque game should be, this was one of my first ones, so for me it was a fantastic game. Next we have Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2. This is one of my favourite games ever, but maybe I'm a little bit biased because I'm a massive fan of Star Wars. Even so, this is an absolute bargain to dive into the lore of the Old Republic. The first game is also the same price, but it isn't native on Linux. It runs through Steam Play Proton, so if you're bothered about playing through both the games, then you can do that if you want to. For this game, I'd recommend looking in the Steam Workshop. There's a bunch of mods to choose from, including a lot of the deleted content which was originally cut from the first game, which adds a ton of content basically. Next we have the Outlast series. Sadly only Outlast 1 is native on Linux, but Outlast 2 runs through Steam Play Proton as well. This is one of my favourite horror games of the last few years. It's honestly terrifying. You have no means of fighting, so you just gotta run for your life and hope that you can escape from the prison that you found yourself in. Next up, we've got the Frictional games collection. These devs are great, they've always supported Linux, and I'd highly recommend most of the games that they have. Personally, if you don't want the full collection, which is a bit more expensive than the singular games, then I'd recommend getting the Number series, which is the original series before Amnesia, and then I'd recommend getting Amnesia The Dark Descent, which is also a fantastic horror game. I've also heard fantastic things about Soma. Whilst I can't personally recommend it as I've not fully played through it, that's also there as well. I do want to play through that at some point though, just because of the fantastic things I've heard about the game, just about the story and the overall experience. Dying Light. I was so hyped for this game when it first came out. It was a day one Linux launch, and whilst the launch was a little bit rocky on Linux, it finally came through in the end, and it's just a fantastic game. This game still gets a lot of love from the devs and still gets updated to this day, and has a bunch of DLC. One that I'd certainly recommend is the following DLC, which basically adds a whole new section of a map with buggies and a load of new weapons, and it's just a fantastic DLC. I recently played through this game again fully with my friends, and it's such a great experience, honestly. I first played through it just by myself, playing through it with friends and just running riot around the city and just kicking ass against zombies. It's so much fun, honestly. It's one of my best experiences that I've ever had in a game. I'd honestly recommend this game. Next up we have Firewatch. This is an interesting choice here. It's basically a walking sim that can be completed in about 5 hours. I completed it in 2 sittings in approximately 5 hours. And you basically have a walkie-talkie and you talk in conversation back and forth with this woman who's on the other side. And yes, it's actually a really great game. I'd recommend it for the price that it is. Hollow Knight's next, with over 130,000 Steam user reviews, 97% of those are positive. It's a pretty highly rated game. This is a fantastic Metroidvania-like game. I absolutely loved the art style in this game, and I think it's paired perfectly with the sound design as well. I actually started playing it again recently on my Nintendo Switch, and I remembered how good of a game it was, which kind of reminds me I still need to complete this game. Next up we have the Hotline Miami series, which is a fast-paced top-down shooting game. I honestly think this hands down has one of the best soundtracks in a video game ever. I still kind of listen to them every now and again on Spotify. I just think it's a great soundtrack. The game itself is also very fun. Like I say, it's super fast-paced. Expect to die a few times when you try the levels, but it's kind of expected as you try and learn the levels and where enemies are going to come from when you trigger them next. The second game adds basically larger levels, which adds another layer of intensity to the level as you try and survive that a little bit longer. Celeste, one of my favourite 2D platformers. Has a solid story and new mechanics are added throughout. It took me about 7 hours to complete this game. It was a very fun game, I'd recommend it. Next up we have the Bioshock series. So here we only have Infinite, which is native on Linux, but Bioshock 1 and Bioshock 2 Remastered both work through Steam Play Proton. This is a really enjoyable single player experience. Each game adds a new mechanic that you can toy with, and the worlds that you get introduced to here are just amazing. They look incredible. So Bioshock 1 and 2 have this incredible underwater world, and then Bioshock Infinite is a complete opposite where it's up in the sky, and it's a fantastic game, looks amazing, and yeah, I'd highly recommend it. Next up we have 7 Days to Die, which is a zombie survival game. Build bases, upgraded character, and of course, kill zombies. Every 7 days there is a huge zombie horde that basically comes and tests everything that you've put together within that 7 days. So that basically means your character, the loot that you found, and basically the base that you've built. And yeah, it will hurt your base very much so you really need to make sure you're ready for those hordes. I usually play this game with a bunch of my friends and we really enjoy it. It's great to come together and build that base together. Well, first of all, find the base and then upgrade it and eventually fight the horde with them. It's a great experience, basically overcoming that horde. Whilst this game gets updated quite frequently still by the devs, one thing that baffles me here is the fact that it's still in alpha. It's not just early access, it's still alpha, even though the game's been in development for quite a few years now, I think like since 2013. So hopefully they progress this game a bit more, like get it at least into a beta, but still, it's a great game. I'll still recommend it. It still gets love from the devs and it still has a up-to-date Linux client. So make sure to check this one out. Okay, last but not least for the Linux games, we have to suggest the Valve games. Anything from Valve, so you have your Half-Life 2 series, your Half-Life 1 series, Left 4 Dead 1 and Left 4 Dead 2, as well as Portal 1 and 2, and basically many more. So those are the ones that I'd seriously recommend if you've not played so far. They are such fantastic games, and Valve have done such a great job helping Steam get onto Linux, as well as bringing their games to Linux as well. And they still continue to do so, with Half-Life Alyx recently coming to Linux. And also, whilst not a Valve game, I'd recommend Black Mesa, which is a fan-made remake of Half-Life 1. I recently played through it, and that's the first time that I played through Half-Life 1, and wow, it looks amazing, and the fans have really done a great job of this game. It's amazing that it was a fan remake, it just looks amazing. And it's got a lot of content. They finally completed it, because I remember when it first came into development and it took a while for them to do the Zen levels, and they recently got released, so go ahead and check that one out as well. So next up, we'll be moving on to the games which don't have native Linux support and have to be ran through Steam Play. So just as a side note, all of the games that I'm showing in the next part of the video I ran through Linux using Steam Play Proton 6.3-5. and all the gameplay has been recorded from that. So I'm going to start this off with the GTA Trilogy. These are one of the first games that I got running through Linux way back in the day using Wine, and I couldn't believe my eyes. Like, yeah, it was great. But yeah, this includes GTA 3, GTA Vice City and San Andreas. I absolutely love these three games. I think they're fantastic, especially Vice City and San Andreas. Vice City personally is my favourite. I think Tommy Vercetti is just such a badass. He's just such a cool dude, such a relaxed guy. But yeah, if you've not played these yet, I'd highly recommend them. If you're looking for a more up-to-date GTA, then you can get GTA 4 and 5, which both work for Steam Play as well. They're also on sale. Next up, we've got the Bethesda games. So that includes Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Skyrim. But there's so many games from these guys that finally run through Linux. And yeah, if you just basically want a game that you can create your own character and just spend hours upon hours upon hours playing and just sink so much time into, then these are the games that you want. Me personally, I'd probably go for one of the older games, so like Oblivion or Fallout 3. If you want a more up-to-date one, probably Skyrim. Next we have the Batman Arkham Collection. This is one of my favourite game series of all time. I think it's fantastic. £10 for all three of these games is an absolute bargain. Graphically, I think these are one of the best looking games of all time, especially Batman Arkham Knight. I think Batman looks incredible in this game. It's such a fantastic story, and I just love the villains that are included in this. And yeah, just an overall great experience. Next up we've got Doom. With over 95,000 Steam user reviews, this has 95% positive reviews, which is very highly rated. This is just such a fantastic first-person shooter. I think this was one of the first officially supported games through Steam Play Proton. It honestly runs so well, it's optimized really great, and just the smoothness of the game feels fantastic. The soundtrack is also amazing, and everything blends so well together. The sequel is also on sale for £16.39. But I just haven't been able to get into that one so far. I think the first Doom is just absolutely fantastic, and that is the one that I'd definitely recommend. Next we have Wreckfest, which is a wonderful car game that I usually play with my friends. It still gets updated quite frequently, and a lot of the cars that you can get are also DLC, which you can purchase separately. That's completely up to you though if you want to buy them. You don't have to buy those. You can do pretty well in the game without having to buy the DLC. There are different game modes that you can play online, such as Demo Derby or just your basic races. Whilst I may say basic races, these are far from basic races, especially when you spend a lot of the time trying to avoid such things as buses and harvesters. Yeah, this is just not a normal racing game. There's also a single player if you do want to play it, but I think most of the fun here is held within the online racing. Next up we've got The Forest, a survival game with a story and full 8-player co-op. I played through this game and the full story with a group of up to 5 people, and I honestly can't believe more games do not follow this recipe. Just being able to progress through a story mode of a survival game with up to 8 people is just fantastic. But alongside the base building and all that stuff, it's just amazing. I just love being able to actually feel like you're progressing through a game and not just pointlessly building a base for the sake of building a base. This is honestly one of my favourite games that I've ever played, just because of the experience that I had with my friends, and I'm seriously looking forward to the game that they're releasing next. Outer Wilds, a game where discovery and exploration is key. So many different worlds to explore and find out their secrets. You'll have 30 minutes to do this as a supernova comes every 30 minutes and destroys the planet. Taking you with it, basically. But yeah, you've seriously got to make your time count because of this and just basically plan out each journey that you do, as eventually you'll find yourself in a place where you're just looking and finding these little secrets, and then all of a sudden supernova comes and yeah, you're gone, you'll have to try it again. Lonely Mountains Downhill. It's such a simple concept, but it's so brilliantly executed. So get from point A to point B, get downhill, reach a goal. Simple. It sounds so easy, but it is honestly such a difficult game, especially when you're aiming to get the challenges that are involved in the levels. But despite the difficulty, I still found it was a fantastic game to just relax to and just sit back, get a controller, and just chill. Now, I was a little bit reluctant to add this game just because I haven't played it much myself. But I looked for it on the Steam sale and saw that it was £5, and wow, that's such an incredible price. I don't think anyone should miss it for that price. This is honestly such a huge game and one of the most highly rated games of recent years. Over 480,000 reviews on Steam. 97% of those are positive. That's just crazy numbers. But yeah, I do intend on sinking some time into this game at some point, so yeah, I guess I can recommend it. The Crash and Spyro Trilogy. These are two of my childhood games, and honestly the remakes are fantastic. Whether you've played these games before or not, I'd highly recommend them. They're such brilliant remakes. Age-wise, these are for anyone, you know, whether it be your 10-year-old kid or me who's like 50 years old or something like that. But yeah, that concludes the games that I would personally recommend. If you've got anything that you'd recommend, honestly feel free to put them below. You know, I don't like the Total War games, I don't like strategy games. Maybe you do. Feel free to put them in the comments. You know, I don't mind. Maybe there's a game suggestion that you'll suggest that I've not seen before and I might end up getting. But yeah, anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Rate and subscribe for future links content, and peace the hell out. See you in the next one.